So for CUNY's policy, they seem to be very inclined to limit free speech as much as possible, and they wish to protect themselves from any possible repercussions or lawsuits that may result from the protesting. Public institutions always have a hidden reason, usually, for hampering free speech when it comes to anything that they perceive as violent or threatening in any way, or harassment. And the problem with terms like that is they're so subjective that lawyers can argue them back and forth all day either way. So you might have something that's perfectly within the guidelines and they can argue that it is against them.
Okay, obviously you have an opinion, but what do you have to say? Let's say you say that to the CUNY official.
Yeah.
If they tell you, well, we're just trying to protect students and protect property on campus because previous demonstrations have gotten violent. So what do you have to say to that they are trying to say that it's a safety issue to protect students, not to not get harmed violently or arrested? What do you have to say to that?
Well, I'd say that I'm sure some of the motives for this policy are to that end, but there's always part of the policy that is snuck in that has something to do with limiting the free speech. It might be partially about safety, and I think it probably is partly, but it's not entirely. These policies created by public institutions never are just for one thing. They always have repercussions on one side and the other side as well, intended and unintended.
Great. CUNY policy on expressive activity.
Well, I think that there is a need for expressive activity, and especially with all the new things that are going on, like Petraeus working. A lot of people have strong opinions about David Petraeus working in CUNY, and I'm not trying to take any sides, but I mean, we have to admit that strong opinions have to be expressed, especially by the youth. So these policies that would restrict the students from expressing these ideas, that's not a good move. Not for the school, not for the students, not for anyone. These ideas and emotions and feelings by young people have to be expressed, especially because it's affecting them directly.
Okay. What do you have to say to people that when they tell you, well, it's for safety issues, like we need to, the previous protests have gotten a little out of hand, so we're trying to protect not only the students but faculty, staff members, and just prevent anybody from getting harmed or arrested or any property damage. What do you have to do?
Well, of course, safety is very important, and nothing can get done if someone feels like they're threatened. But there's a difference between being safe and being censored or silenced. You know, if people are not being able to express their ideas based on the claim of additional safety, then that's a totally different thing. Safety where you can enforce people are not getting hurt, people are not being disturbed in their movement, that's totally fine, and I completely support that. But if you say, for example, something ambiguous like students are not allowed to shout, what is considered a shout? Like if I'm talking like one step louder, is this shouting? Or if I'm talking a little bit like this, is this shouting? So that kind of language is very, very ambiguous. So when you put that in the legislation, you have to be aware that people, if let's say if an officer hears a student saying something that the officer doesn't like to hear, he can just say, oh, that student was shouting and I have the legal duty to remove him from the premises. So that ambiguous language is very dangerous.
Perfect.
Influenced by the liberal media, they don't have their own opinions anymore. Everybody's following everybody else. So the policy that's set for Baruch with prohibited contact, there's no problem with that. If someone gets rowdy, then the officers step in and take care of it. It's still on Baruch property, so you can't be outlandish. You have to be safe. So if there's bullshit going on, they should shut it down. It's freedom of speech, but only to some extent. It has to be a peaceful protest, or it has to be peaceful, because of it, you have the right to peaceful protest. That's what America is about. But you have to have the officers to protect everybody's safety. If they have Baruch has paid so much for insurance, because if they're liable, like someone dies here, seriously, then they have to have that money. So they have to make sure no one gets hurt, or they have to pay out millions. They'll be the insurers will give them the money, but still, you don't want to do that. Your premium goes up, so like, fuck that. So, what other questions do you guys have?
Well, what do you have to say to the students that are trying to say that this law, if it's passed, is going to prevent free speech on campus?
It's not preventing free speech. I don't see any reason why you can't make a nice demonstration without making any type of nonsense. You know, like people who are acting up. Like, listen, Baruch is a classy place, and you got to keep it that way. No ruckus. It's got to be peaceful, all good vibes, being positive all times. To rule against it is complete tomfoolery. Good. You like that? Yeah.
Now we got an opposing view. Every view we've had.
Yeah. You need.
What I think about the explicit activities policy is I think that the administration and the Board of Trustees are trying to pass this policy that will outright ban protests on campuses. It's a direct response to the growing movement against Petraeus and the militarization of CUNY. And this is something that we must fight, because otherwise we would have to give public safety 24 hours notice. They can shut down the protest if more people came than we had thought. They can shut it down if we're too loud and if we're disturbing public order. It's so vaguely worded that it can be enforced at any time. So it's essential that we get more people involved in this movement.